The shame avoidants carry after hurting you, why they go silent after love. When an avoidant hurts you, what you usually see is distance, silence, cold logic, a sudden shift from warmth to detachment that makes you question everything. But what you don't see, what they rarely show anyone, is the shame that follows them long after the damage is done. And that shame is heavier than most people realize. Avoidants are not emotionless. They are emotionally overwhelmed. They don't disconnect because they don't care. They disconnect because caring feels dangerous. So when they hurt you, by withdrawing, by shutting down, by choosing independence over intimacy, they may look unaffected on the surface. But internally, something much more complex is happening. Avoidant attachment is rooted in early emotional conditioning. Many avoidants grew up in environments where vulnerability was ignored, dismissed, or even punished. Love was often conditional, and emotional needs were seen as burdensome. Over time, they learned a survival strategy: rely on yourself, suppress your needs, and never let anyone get close enough to hurt you. This strategy works until they fall in love, because love activates the very wounds they've spent a lifetime trying to avoid. And when intimacy starts demanding emotional presence, they feel trapped. Not because you are too much, but because closeness awakens their deepest fear, that they are not enough. So when they pull away, when they go silent after conflict, when they leave without fully explaining why, it's not just avoidance, it's shame. Shame that they couldn't show up. Shame that they hurt someone who genuinely cared. Shame that they once again confirmed the story in their head: I ruin good things. But instead of expressing that shame, they bury it. Because to admit it would mean facing vulnerability, and vulnerability is the very thing their nervous system is wired to escape. The tragedy is that avoidants often replay the relationship long after it ends. They remember your patience, your efforts, the moments you tried to break through their walls. And instead of feeling anger toward you, many feel a quiet self-disgust. Not dramatic, not explosive, but subtle and persistent. They might distract themselves with work, new routines, even new partners. But unresolved shame doesn't disappear. It lingers in small, silent moments, late at night during anniversaries, when something reminds them of how safe they once felt with you. Here's the paradox. Avoidants want love deeply. They crave connection. But when they receive it, it exposes their fear of dependency. And when they hurt you because of that fear, it reinforces another painful belief: I am incapable of sustaining love. That belief feeds their shame. And shame, unlike guilt, doesn't say I did something bad. It says, I am bad. That distinction matters. Because guilt motivates repair. Shame motivates withdrawal. You might wonder, if they feel shame, why don't they apologize? Why don't they come back and make things right? The answer is painful but honest. Because repair requires emotional exposure. It requires saying, I was scared, or I didn't know how to handle my feelings, or I hurt you because I didn't know how to stay. And for someone who learned to survive by suppressing vulnerability, that level of honesty feels like standing naked in a storm. It feels unsafe. So instead, they cope the only way they know how, by convincing themselves the breakup was logical, necessary, inevitable. But logic doesn't erase emotion. It just numbs it temporarily. Deep down, many avoidants carry a private awareness that they hurt someone who loved them sincerely. And that awareness becomes a quiet weight they carry into future relationships. You may not see it. They won't post about it. They won't admit it openly. But it shapes how they approach love again. Some double down on avoidance, becoming even more independent and self-contained. Others slowly begin to question their patterns, especially if the loss truly mattered. And here's something important for you to understand. Their shame is not your responsibility to fix. It's easy to feel empathy and think, if I had been more patient, more understanding, maybe they wouldn't have run. But their avoidance was formed long before you. Their shame existed long before your relationship. You were not too emotional. You were not too demanding. You were asking for connection, something healthy relationships require. The fact that they couldn't consistently meet that need does not mean you asked for too much. It means they were fighting an internal battle you couldn't see. Ironically, sometimes the only thing that truly confronts an avoidance shame is losing someone who loved them well. Not because punishment is the goal, but because absence removes the distraction. When you stop chasing, stop explaining, stop trying to convince them to stay, they are left alone with their own patterns. And in that silence, shame has space to surface. That's when growth becomes possible, if they are willing to face it. But growth is a choice. Some avoidants choose self-awareness. They go to therapy. They start naming their emotions. They learn that vulnerability is not weakness, but strength. And slowly they rewrite the story they carry about themselves. Others, however, continue running, telling themselves that they just haven't found the right person yet. But the pattern follows them. Because the issue was never the partner. It was the unresolved shame. So if you've been hurt by an avoidant, understand this. Their distance was not proof that you were unlovable. In many cases, it was proof that the love was real enough to scare them. That doesn't excuse the pain they caused. It doesn't invalidate your heartbreak. But it does shift the narrative. You were not too much. You simply triggered emotions they never learned how to handle. And the shame they carry? It's quiet, invisible, often unspoken. But it exists. Not as revenge, not as cosmic justice, just as the natural consequence of avoiding emotional truth. Because when someone consistently runs from intimacy, they eventually run into themselves. And that meeting, with all the regret, the what-ifs, the memories of someone who loved them despite their walls, is where shame lives. The real question is not whether they feel it. Many do. The real question is whether they will transform it into accountability. And that part is out of your hands.